meeting to order. Would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I didn't even call the time. 8:02. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. The City Council welcomes general comments from the general public at the appropriate time as part of each meeting agenda. The council may also accept and a description of the chair, comments, and input from citizens relative to specific agenda items. Citizens and other visitors wishing to address the council must complete this form and sign in before the meeting begins in the foyer of the City Hall. Speakers will have the opportunity to speak during the designated time periods in accordance with the approved rules of City Council, and all speakers must comply with the 3-minute time limitations for said comments. Inquiries from speakers about matters not listed on the agenda will either be directed to the city manager or placed on future agendas for City Council for consideration. At this time, we'll open up the public comment. Anyone here wishing to speak? Please come up, state your name, sir.
Hi, Council, Mayor. My name is Brad Grout. I've been watching this process for the last 2-3 months with kind of amusement. I've served on 4 commissions or boards for the city over 10 years. What you're challenged with today is not new. This topic comes up about every 3 or 4 years. To say it's comical would be understating how many hoops you have to go through to volunteer with the city. An interview with a panel that may or may not understand what you're being interviewed for. A panel that may potentially not just like you, so you don't get to council. Probably not the best way. In those 4 times I've served on commissions, I've given up 3 times because my application's been lost, because it just wasn't the right fit, and I've pulled my name. I pulled my name from P&Z for this time because of the circus that's going on about this. Do you know what happens in the real world when you keep a candidate waiting 4 months? They go find something else. You're asking for the city's best. Please give them the same respect as that. Y'all aren't respecting the citizens. This whole debate has been comical. Anybody looking is laughing, and that's sad. I've given 10 years of volunteering to this city. Am I always agreeing with council? No. Some of you on the dais have gotten letters from me and notices from me that I think you've done wrong. But in the end, we need to do what's right for the city. It's not about political agendas. It's not about who is going to be the next council member. One of the comments in the last council meeting was, oh, we're making people that'll come to replace us. I have news for you. 95% of the people that volunteer have 0 interest in y'all's seats. They want to serve the community. They want to do something for their neighborhood. They don't necessarily want the chaos that is council. And God love y'all. Thank you for doing it. I couldn't imagine sitting up here until 1 or 2 a.m. doing those things. So for that, I appreciate y'all. But I ask you to start appreciating and respecting the citizens of Kyle by getting a process that is reasonable and short. Because quite frankly, people will walk away and they may not come back. I have 10 years, 4 commissions, mobility, charter review, let's see, ethics, and B&Z. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grout. Appreciate it. Jennifer, I forgot to call roll. Could we call roll, please?
Mitchell. Rizzo.
Present.
Ellison.
Present.
Flores Kale.
Here.
Bradshaw. Absent. Parsley.
Here.
Tobias.
At this time, are there any citizens wishing to come forward? Seeing none, we'll now close citizens' comment. All right. All right, how do we want to start this off? Any thoughts, Mayor?
We got to open the agenda item first.
Sounds good. A special meeting, do we have that? Do you have that?
I don't know, is there an agenda?
Is there an agenda for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there? Yep, okay. Sorry, it's a Sunday morning.
I thought it was gonna be like the budget meeting.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too, so honest with myself. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah? You don't sit up here, right?
Yeah. All right. All right, so, item number 1, discussion on crafting the boards and commissions policies and procedures. Mayor, this is your item.
So we can just start with whoever feels like they've got something to propose. The task force might be a good place to start. So if anyone there wants to bring up their thoughts, we can go with that.
Any council members on the task force want to start off?
I don't mind starting off with just the comment that originally I was in favor of just an only staff-led one to keep any kind of politics out of the boards and commissions. I don't think that was received well by council, all of council, I should say. And so then I kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of integrating council onto the process. And so the idea that was brought forward by the P and Z commissioner was to have a liaison for each of the boards and commissions. And I don't know if I'm totally on board with that either. Because I think, again, that'll turn political and it'll make some people frustrated because they didn't get the board they wanted. Not that that's our responsibility, not that we need to worry about what board we're on, but if you don't receive the board that you wish to get on, I could understand where somebody may not be as into their responsibilities as they should be. So as of now, I'm still leaning more towards the staff-led one. But again, and Dex also sent us an email, and I thought it was equally good, and that just consisted of the council looking at all the applications and then taking a vote and moving forward there, which I like that idea too, because at least we can all see all the applications, and then everybody gets an input, and then it's a vote by the majority.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Oh, Councilmember Ellison?
A few different things. Sorry, Council, I'm probably going to talk for a minute because I've been working on this all week since we last talked about it. So, I had Amber forward you all the 3 responses I received back from the chairs. I know it's probably a lot to read right now, but I sent all the chairs, with the exception of the one that's already been spoken to, the same exact email asking for their ideas and suggestions on board and commission appointments. These are the 3 responses I received back in the short amount of time we had to get the feedback, so I'll let you all digest that. So that's just what that is about, because while I think that the chair that was spoken to by the previous task force, smart guy, certainly appreciate his service and his input. we have some really great chairs of boards, and I just wanted to get them the same opportunity to give their input on that. So some interesting thoughts that were given. Like I said, I'll let you all digest that there as well. And if I get any others from the others, I'll have staff forward them. Secondly, I had Scott last week forward you all the process that was going on that day for San Marcos, where they called it their draft, but what I discovered was it was nothing unique. So I looked at Fredericksburg, the city we first went to our visioning workshop. I looked at Galveston's, I looked at Round Rock's, I looked at Frisco's, all of their policies for appointing boards and commissions, and guess what? They're all the same. And guess what? None of them do. Have individual council members interview the applicants. All of them do it the exact same way. And that is similar to the process that I outlined last time we met. And that's essentially where there is an application period. Everyone who is interested in applying for a board or commission, any of the boards and commissions on the city, submit their application. And then all of council gets all of those applications. That member puts the top 3 that they would be interested in serving on. And then there's a meeting, typically it's a special meeting, in which they just focus on that. That is all they do. That's what they did in San Marcos. That's what they do in the other cities. Some of them do it before a regular meeting. I'd probably discourage that, and it just be one night or what have you, where that's a special meeting, and that's what is focused on. It took them about an hour and a half to do it in San Marcos. They have a lot more boards and commissions, though, than we do. Probably in the teens, easily. And they did it in about an hour and a half. So we have far less boards and commissions. So I think that similar process that is done in all the cities I mentioned before could be done in a brief, in probably an hour. And essentially how it works is they get all the applicants, all council members get all the applicants. They then come with their nominees. They went through each board or commission one at a time, and they would nominate as many people as they wanted to for that board. And so every person would get to nominate as one or as many names as they wanted. And then after they went through the nomination process, they'd come back through again, and then you could vote on however many from the list of nominees only, however many vacancies there were. So if there were 2 vacancies, you would have to say 2 names from that list of nominees. And then that's who would be voted on. And they're essentially drafted for each board or commission from there. And the goal is to try to find people that are just interested in serving and the commitment that is with that. One of the things that I noticed that was the difference, while the policies were all basically the same, the difference was in the application. And probably the best and most thorough application I found of all of those was the Round Rock application. It was very thorough. And you're just trying to glean information about, that person's commitment to the service. What do they, I'll read a couple of questions that stood out to me actually in their application. So they certainly asked listing any professional community activities, things like that, their experience, training, and skill sets, pretty typical stuff. There's a section about the ethics agreement. They've asked, if they agree and to adhere by the city's ethics ordinance, if there's any conflicts of interest, to list those. It really places an emphasis on the commitment to serve during the times in which the boards meet. It lays it out in the application that they understand what the service is and the time commitment for serving on however many meetings. The supplemental questions in the Round Rock application were particularly interesting to me. They said, what do you feel are the responsibilities of the board or commission you are applying for? So I thought that was an interesting question to glean from them what they feel the responsibility is. Second supplementary question, What is the role between the board and commission for which you are applying for and the city council, city staff, and the general public? I thought it was a really good question. Trying to understand what that applicant feels that role is. It asks, have you ever attended a meeting of the board or commission you applied for? Yes or no. Have you ever read the minutes of a recent meeting of a board or commission you're applying for? Yes or no. Why are you willing to commit time to volunteer for this appointment position? And do you foresee yourself any other positions? That one I could do with or without. But as you can kind of see, it's trying to gauge, one, that person's experience and knowledge and understanding of what that board or commission is that they're applying for, what that role might be within that board or commission, between city staff, city council, and the public. I thought all of those were really good questions, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to get. Everybody in this city that is a registered voter, has lived in this city for the period of time that is delegated in our charter, that's either 6 or 12 months, is a qualified person to serve on our board and commission, full stop. There's nothing else that is required of anybody else in our charter or anything else that would require somebody to have any level of experience. For example, in our charter, it says that no more than 2 P&Z commissioners should have directly or indirectly real estate or land development experience. So what does that say? The creators of the charter wanted regular Joe and Jane Schmoes to serve on our boards and commissions, not people with extensive backgrounds or experience in land development or all those different things that might be the purview of that board, but that wasn't the objective of it. It still just wanted, as I might say, a regular Jane and Joe Schmo to serve on that board, because at the end of the day, we're trying to build a community in a city for regular Jane and Joe Schmoes, not, you know, extended experienced people or anything like that. So those are what I found in my research. So the proof was in the application and the extensiveness of that, but the policy was all the same across all of those. Like I said, the only random city I picked was Round Rock. The others were the ones we've done our visioning workshops with. And then, of course, San Marcos, because they just happened to be doing that, their draft that same day that we had our last council meeting. But that puts everything, and I understand the debate between having staff only do it and council only do it, or a mix of different things. I think this gets away from individuals, any one of us, proxy or otherwise, individually interviewing people and coming and making a recommendation. I think that, looking deep at the last policy, I think that was the crux of my issue, is that one individual, proxy or otherwise, brought forward the nomination. And in all my years of watching council since I've been in the city since 2009, I've never seen, outside of maybe your ethics commissioner appointment, never seen anybody vote down somebody who's had their name on an agenda and brought forward publicly. That's a tough thing to do. So it's almost, it goes through the nominee regardless. So when you have the entire body getting all of the applications and reviewing them and then having an opportunity to digest that on our own and then come to a meeting and make nominations, and then from those nominations, we vote from those based on the thoroughness of their application, what they've said in there, their commitment to serve, their willingness to, and their commitment to serve at all the meetings that are scheduled for them on that board or commission. That is what we're looking for. And so really, the policy could be quite simple. It's really the nuts and bolts are in the application. And since I've taken up so much time, I just want to go ahead and say my last few points, that I think the recommendation we should do is come up with that simple policy, just like that. Go ahead and I think we should update our application, but I don't think we should wait until we've done that. I think we should get the policy in place, go through with the applications we have on file as of even of January of 2021, because there's a lot of applicants in there. We reach back out and see if any of those folks are interested that have applied within this past year. If they are still interested, we'll take their applications as they are. We schedule that special called meeting. Heck, as soon as by the end of this month, if we're so interested in getting these boards and commissions filled, we have that special called meeting and we follow that process there. And then after that fact, we can do it another time where we hammer down and really get the application we want. But just kind of reviewing all of this and trying to understand the time frame and trying to get these boards and commissions filled. We also have an arts commission that we haven't filled either, which would largely go by this. The other challenge, I will say, looking through the charter, there are examples, and this is something I hope to discuss when we have our joint meetings. There's different parameters for certain boards and commissions in here. So like the Planning and Zoning Commission, in the charter it says that if they can't miss more than 4 meetings in the one term, so that's 2 years. That's the only board or commission that has it in. For the library board, it's they can't miss more than 3 consecutive meetings. So there's a little bit of nuance and difference in the charter between the boards and commissions. It's not all uniform, which is a little frustrating. I think they should all be uniform, but that's the charter, so that's what it is. So I think any policy we have should, and they do it in the other policies that I've seen in the other cities, they reference if there's an ordinance or something within the charter that would supersede or also apply additionally to a board that doesn't go across all boards. So they make note of that in the policy. But that would more or less be my suggestion today. Like, I hate to oversimplify, but we have been discussing this. I'm sure we all have been putting in our work and different things to figure out what we feel is best. But just to say the final point is I really feel that the council should be involved in this, and by doing it as a whole and as a group, that means we're all equally involved. Because there's always going to be a concern about egos or political things. Even with I watched the San Marcos meeting. Even with that one, it only happened on the Planning and Zoning Commission. All the others, no one cared about asking the question, but it was only P&Z, and I know Travis is laughing because I know we've seen this. We get it, in which people were like, "Oh, well, these are NIMBYs, or is this somebody who donated to your last campaign, or is this a golf buddy?" and all these different things. You're never gonna eradicate that, even if you put it with staff, because there are people staff know and different things like that and have relationships with. So there's always going to be that influence. But I think by making it a full council meeting in which it's public, the public can see us, the public can see our process, that conversation, it at least puts that on us, that it's like, okay, we need to try and be as fair as possible. And this isn't just for us. The thing about policies, they really should be good policies that they go for regardless of who the people are, right? So this is our opportunity to make a policy that will not only govern these people on this council right now, but future councils, that they will see that same thing going forward. I think that's an important thing to do whenever we're creating and updating policies and different things like that. But I think that covers the gist of what I wanted to say, but I just really feel like, once again, looking through those various different processes, I know in government, doing the same thing that someone else is doing is the ultimate form of flattery, but it really doesn't, a little bit to the point of what the citizen comment was, it doesn't have to be that nuanced and difficult of a thing. Once again, all of those cities, big and small, Frisco and Round Rock are a little bit bigger. Galveston, Fredericksburg is smaller than us. All the same policy, doing it the same way. So thank you, Council.
Anyone else? Daniela?
So I agree with what Dex was saying right now. The process should be a lot more simple, and the qualifications should be a lot easier. Like what I was reading on the charter was that, I think it's the Municod, individuals should not be eligible unless they meet the following qualifications: being at least 18 years of age, be a citizen, have a resident of the state of Texas and the city for at least 12 consecutive months, and not be delinquent or any indebts to the city. And they cannot be a city employee. So that's basically makes it a resident qualifying to apply for the boards and commissions, and then get into I don't know if we do want to go ahead and do interviews or if we want to take the applications and then discuss it in a council meeting. I like the idea of having people that have background education on a matter and people that don't have it. So I don't know if that has to be some sort of 50-50 on the number of seats that we have, just so we get ideas from regular residents that may want to see things in place in the city, whether it's for the Arts and Commission or the PNC, and then having somebody that has some sort of background education on the matter. So those were my points. I do think that the applications, we should have like a 30 calendar day window to take those in, and that should be a limit. I know initially we said 14 calendar days. I think we should extend that to 30 days. The opening should be done within 15 days of the seat being vacant. I think those were my points. I know we had talked about if there are not enough applications, so I don't know what enough is. I would say just at that 30-day window, we need to just close it, and whoever has applied, that's what we will take into consideration. I really, as a council member, wouldn't want to have anything to do with the selection process, but that is just my opinion. That's all I have to say.
Mayor Mitchell?
I was curious about something that Dex said. I'm trying to figure out how that would work. So if let's say there are 10 applications that meet the minimum qualification, then do these other cities, the way they do it is they put all 10 on the agenda or is there still an interview process and or a narrowing down? So I guess because the reason I'm asking that is because in my mind, the way I hear that going is, in my example, there'd be 10 names on the agenda, and then the item would get brought forward, and there'd be, it'd be open for discussion, and then maybe, whoever wanted to could nominate out of that applicant pool. And then there'd be a vote. Is that the way that it happens in the other cities?
Yeah. So yeah, everybody who applies and meets the only qualifications, once again, only qualifications that there are for our boards and commissions are the one read by Councilmember Parsley. So all of those folks, and that's all staff's role is, to identify if those people meet that. That is the extent of their role. And then so all applications, 10, 5, 15, 50, however many apply, all of those people that have met the qualifications are are eligible to be chosen, are nominated for any of those boards and commissions. They will, in their application, state the top 3. That's typically what was done in the other cities. They would be able to name the 3 boards with a caveat knowing that they could be picked for any of them. And so once we all have all those applications and have all those names, then what they did was they went one by one, and each person, so I could say, okay, out of those 10 people, I nominate these 5 people to potentially be on, I'll just say blank board. And then each person would do that. And then we've then narrowed that list from the larger list down to the nominee list. And then for the second row we go through is then from the nominee list, we then pick however many seats. So say blank board had 2 vacant spots. We would then each name 2 people in which we would actually name to that board from the shorter nominee list. You following me? So you went from the big list of all applicants. So yeah, okay. Follow me there.
I sort of.
So you got.
So how do you go from the big list to the shorter list? Is
One
it council at a meeting that does that?
Yes, on that special called meeting. So everybody who's qualified, all however many people, those all get submitted to us, all their applications, and they are all eligible to be nominated and then ultimately selected to a board. So there's one run through of the council to nominate from the larger group. And then that gets narrowed down to just the nominee list, however many we nominate. And then from that nominee list, we can only pick however many seats there are for that individual board that we're focusing on for that time. So if it's the library board, they have 2 vacancies. Then from that truncated nominee list, the shorter one, from the first round we just went through, then we would get to name 2 people. And so say we go through one time and one person gets 6 votes, but nobody else gets a majority of vote. So then that one person, they get on, and then we go through again, based on, once again, just the nominated list, until we have a majority of the council vote for however many seats are be filled. And then it's done, and they move to the next board. So that's how that process kind of works.
That's kind of the substitute for the interview process, is what you're saying.
Yes,
So
essentially.
in your scenario, there would not be an interview. You wouldn't get called in and be asked questions, which is why, at least it seems in my mind like you're going for the more thorough application, because that's where we're going to get the information. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So yeah, exactly. So the application, once again, the Round Rock was, out of all the cities I looked at, had the most thorough and really application to glean as much information from that applicant as possible about why they're wanting to serve, what they feel the role is, all these other different, what they feel their part within the public and within the council and within city staff, what that role looks like. So yeah, you're completely taking out individual interviews. No one of us are doing individual interviews and bringing back any nominees. We're all getting the same people. The interview process is essentially how thorough and good your application was at explaining who you are and why you want to do this job. Certainly you could come to that special meeting and speak during citizen comments if you wanted to add additional color to your application, but that's not required either. But because it's an open meeting, that citizen comments period would be placed on that agenda. And so that's essentially the gist of the process. And it's quick. Once again, San Marcos has 3 times as many boards and commissions as we did, and they did it in about an hour and a half. So it can really be a straightforward process. All of the cities as well, they had a time frame in which they did it each year. Everybody knows from looking at the website when that meeting, it's usually a month. It's either September or October they did it, but they designated a month in which that meeting would need to be had to appoint all the boards and commissions for that year, or however many expired. And of course, if there were a vacancy that came into place because somebody moved out of the city or for whatever reason got out of the ability to be qualified for that board or commission, then they would take that up on a case-by-case basis. But otherwise, it was one designated month in which they knew. Some of them even had a time frame. It was like from May to July 31st, that's when we're accepting all applications. So you had that 2-month frame. That's just, I'm not saying we should do it that way, but that was just another example. They did that, but all of them, they had a month designated in which they knew that they were going to be calling this special called meeting in order to appoint and do that process. I hope that answered your question.
Mayor, are you done? All right. Anyone else? Councilman Tobias?
All right. Thank you, Councilman Ellison, for looking into that. Again, it's simplifying the process, again, trying to make sure that it's fair and balanced on this end. I think you made some good points on the application process, starting with the application, correct? Stating on how it's worded as far as the qualifications, and then it gets narrowed down to if there's a disqualifier, then it's not passed forward.
Well, so I want to be careful here. The only qualifications for any of our boards and commissions, this cannot be lost, are the ones that Councilmember Parsley read. Those are all of the only qualifications. So everybody who meets those qualifications you just said, they automatically are, the staff vets that and makes sure that's the case, but all of those people make it into that special meeting as long as they meet those qualifications. The application replaces those individual interviews because it is, once again, my suggestion is not we should update the policy, appoint from what we already have in the queue, and then at another later date, we go through and really make our application better in the way we want it to. But what I've discovered basically is the proof is in the application on these. And once again, the Round Rock one I felt was the most thorough. So that gives us all the information we should need to know about this individual without ever having talked to them and all that stuff. This tells us what we need to know about it, and it's hopefully as objective as possible. You're never going to eradicate every little nuance and bias and all these different things. You're not going to do that, as evidenced by looking at other cities who have probably tried to do the same thing. But that's what it is about, and I just want to be careful on that, because every time I hear qualifications, the only thing in my mind are the things that Councilmember Parsley pointed up. Other than that, there are no other qualifications. We can have our own individual criteria, like say, when I'm picking my nominees, I'm wanting to pick people that are from this district or that district. That's my personal choice when I make my nominations. Every one of us will have our own individual things that a reason for nominating people from the larger list, but that is done as a group and not individually.
Okay, so another suggestion would be, or procedure would be, is would these meetings, if we were to go with this formula of the special meeting for just boards and commissions, would this be at the beginning of the year or as needed? So should we just beginning January, or at the end of the year, December, to where they're done on January 1st, all the boards are filled, to where, let's say in December, we have a special meeting and appoint all the boards for 2023?
So, like I said, the cities that I looked at, those 5 or so, they had a specific month outlined in their ordinance for appointing these boards and commissions. Typically, it was September to October. I'm assuming because to line up with the fiscal year. So, obviously, we're in February right now, and we have boards and commissions to appoint. So, I think, once again, I think that we should have, this one-off special meeting to go ahead and get these appointments filled with this new policy. And then I think it should follow something along our fiscal year as well, personally. And that's what I've gathered from the others, and I can see the reasoning behind that. So everybody's appointed. We already have that. Every board and commission expires at the end of September, correct? So we already have that. So September, October, I think, would be the appropriate time to do that, since our boards and commissions terms expire at the end of September anyway.
Okay, so like right after our budget season, at the end of August, okay, the first brand new year, September 1st, or after that, sometime, let's say in September, is when we would call for this special meeting to appoint all the boards. And then that way, they're done by October, or they're all filled by October. So by October 1st, we would have pretty much an idea of all the commissions all on the same time frame.
Yeah,
By
and I
month
think
and by year, and then that way it's all consistent as far as any openings and so forth, versus this term's up over here, this person's term is up there. It's consistent by the month and by the year.
Yeah, and there's a thorough process of understanding exactly where each of our board and service commissioners are in their term, how many will be falling out. I saw with the city of, who was it? It was either Frisco or Fredericksburg, the 2 Fs, one of those two, where they had, you could actually go online and on their website, and you can see, and I know we have it as well, where people, their terms expire, but they had an actual document where it made it really simple, all on one page. You didn't have to click on each individual board and commission to find them, but it's just one document they had each year already ready, and the name of the individual, the board they served on, and that their term would be expiring. And the thing is too, I will say this is the one thing I missed, I apologize. All of the cities I looked at, reappointments all had to reapply. The same process, they had to go through the same thing. Now there were some, I know in our charter, like for the library board, it says that by a majority vote, the board or commission can recommend a reappointment. But once again, they're just making that recommendation. It doesn't have to be, a given thing. But that's the only one I saw of our boards and commissions in our charter that had anything like that. But that was the other point I wanted to make, was that all reappointments, they had to come back and do the same process.
Just hold that thought real quick. All right. Scott, city manager.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of things in our current procedure. Board and commission terms, typically board terms are 2-year terms, and they expire on September 30th of the depending on if it's an odd year or even year, right? So it's staggered that way. There was a concern, or has been a concern in the past, about potentially outgoing council members appointing board or commission members for a future 2-year term, and not allowing an incoming council member to make that appointment. And so I'm only bringing that up is because September, October timeframe is 1 month before the election, in case there is a vacancy on council or potential new seat on council.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Tobias, anything else to add to that?
So if we were to go with this, recommendation or idea that Councilman Nelson had, as far as the appointing across and having a special meeting. So what you're saying is that it would be best, or the idea would be to have it in December versus in September, October, because of this reason of possible new council members?
This council has done that in the past. Yes, December, January timeframe.
All right, let me go real quick before we get anything further. So I guess the only question I've got for Councilmember Ellison is, what do they do if they have somebody resign from a board or commission during the year, leaving them vacant? How would they handle that process? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, so it was generally the same across all cities. They would have a special called meeting to fill that vacancy. And so as far as, I think, one thing I was thinking about when I was reviewing all these cities and different things is it constantly bounced up against my creed of, certainly doing things a little unique. But I think that's where we could probably fill in the nuance of that, a time frame if we want to open back up an application period for 14 or 30 days, if there's a resignation, to allow people to apply. But the same process should still be the same. The process of the council getting all the applications and doing that special meeting and all that. So if we had a resignation or any other reason there could be for somebody needing to be removed off of a board, or, all the different options there could be, then my recommendation, and from what I saw from the cities and generally, they just they went on and called another special call meeting. It's just whether we want to open up the real question, I think, is do we want to open up an application period when that happens to try and see and get more time relevant people to apply for that, or we just want to open back up the book of those that didn't get picked, which, there could be a lot of those people from the previous round that if we did it in September, October, or December, doesn't matter. We could open back that book. Staff reaches back out to see if those that have applied that previous year and didn't get it, if they're still interested because we have a vacancy, and if they say yes, they get back we get their application back, go through the same process again.
I kind of like that idea on calling people back. One reason why is that when we were filling a board, I remember sitting on that committee and we were filling a board. I remember reading the application and seeing that this applicant would have probably been better served maybe serving on P&Z because of their qualifications. Kept wondering why did this applicant apply for P&Z? Their application is amazing and their experience and life skills were pretty out there as well, probably very beneficial to P&Z. But I kept thinking, boy, it'd be great to have this person over there and to have a process where we could probably reach out to somebody for another board or commission would be great. I guess for me, when we first opened this up, I guess my biggest concern was making sure that we had equal representation throughout the city. And I think that's what my number one concern has always been, is making sure that every part of our city is equally represented. And what does that look like? And honestly, I can't come up with anything that would probably work, because I thought about every council member maybe appointing one person to that board or commission. But even right now, we've got 3 council members that live in one part of the city. Actually, if you get into just 4 council members that live in one part of the city. So that doesn't give you equal representation if you do it that way. So I've really been pondering on this and wondering how. But really, I think it might be something as simple as what Councilmember Ellison is bringing forward, is the 7 of us up here, trying to determine who sits on these boards and commissions to try to give the equality throughout the city. That might be the process, because honestly, I've pondered on this a lot since I first got on council. There's always been debate about, is there favoritism? Is there anything going on? And I'm like, my biggest concern was making sure that everybody in the city is equally represented, whether you're in Waterleaf, whether you're in Plum Creek, whether you live in what is it, Cypress is our city? So Cypress, or if you're, even further east. Or even north of the city, but still in the city limits. I just don't see a way to get there. And I think this might be the easiest and way to probably get there and achieve that when there's 7 people deciding that. Hopefully their hearts will be in the part where equal representation. And that's all I can think of. Anybody else? Councilmember Kell.
Thank you. So throughout the whole process of boards and commissions, my concern has always been the lack of being able to see the applications or having to request the applications as a council member. And I think this new, or not new, but, Round Rock's policy really eliminates all that. And it gives everybody the opportunity to say, you know what, there already are. And I don't know if this can be a disqualification or not, I don't know. But we could say there's already representation from that town by four other members. So to Councilmember Rizzo's concern, in the event there becomes just too much representation on one side, we can always take that into consideration when we make our vote. So I think this is a really great opportunity. As always, Councilmember Ellison does a great job of research. I mean, I love to research, but I think in this situation, he far outdid me. And so I appreciate him looking at the different surrounding cities. There was one thing I wanted to point out. I'm not sure if I can locate it on my cheat sheet. But overall, I like the idea of it. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to discuss, which was there seems to be a lot of talk of when this will be done. But I think we also have to keep in mind that there will be special meetings called regarding this. And we should just be open to that, because life happens. People will have to leave their position. But I don't think that should ever discourage what day we meet on in order to appoint these people. Should never be an issue. As long as we're okay with a day, I think that's all that matters. And as long as we're okay with the process, the day can come at any time we want. And I think September is good. I didn't realize there was like a hard cutoff, and I should have known better. But yes, I think September, even though we are into the budget, we're already busy, we're already into it, and I don't think it matters if it's in September or if it's in January or if it's in December. My concern would be, though, going out a little too far, and if we do it like a couple months in advance, maybe that person's availability will change. And so the sooner the better, I think, is when there's an opening, or maybe something more towards, like if their term is up in September, we complete the process by like August.
Yeah, I don't think it was the budget that everybody was concerned. It was about the election coming up. I think it's what the concern that was brought up. So it's not whether we're working on the budget or not. It's if we want to do it in September just before the election, because it could be an outgoing council member appointing that person. So that's kind of what the issue was there. But if everybody's good with it, I think I would be okay with September, even if somebody going out. Hopefully any council member going out doesn't do something devious to put somebody up there that's controversial or something, So
Somebody
that's what my
that's been
hope
there
is.
for like a year could also do the same thing. So you just kind of put your hope and faith into that person, and
That they'll do the right thing.
that they'll do the right thing. That's all we can ask. But you know what? Just because you elect, you're one vote. We are all one vote. So if we see it going in that direction, we can stop it. It is always the will of council, not the will of one. Anyways, I think the Round Rock application is a great idea. And if you guys want me to, I went onto their website. It is all interactive, so it's not like a paper. But what I can do is I can retype that up, and then I can bring it back and present it, and then we can decide if that's the way we want to go or not. I think it's a great idea. I think it has a good combination of staff collecting the applications, and then collectively us reviewing them, and collectively us voting for the candidate that we like. As far as asking if there was going to be an interview process, I think the interview process is perfectly fine being right there in front of everybody, so we can all ask the questions and we can all hear the answers.
Councilmember Tobias?
Okay, going back to the time frame, I did hear city manager state that, you know, typically we have the elections in November. But if we still stay on track by doing it in September, and you maybe divide the commission's boards as far as appoints every other year, to where it gives, let's say a new person does come on board, that new council member the following year has an opportunity to select on commission's boards, or is this gonna be consistent? Everything's gonna be every year. It's gonna be a new process, all 12 that we have, whether we get somebody new or we have somebody still on council. Do we just go ahead and just keep it at September, make the appointees? That way it's done by October 1st?
I think what Councilmember Tobias is stating is whether we do half the boards and commissions one year and the other half the other year. Is that what you were saying, Michael?
Yeah, let me,
Getting everybody's feedback.
Doing everything?
That's
in
what I'm just getting at.
Either or, okay.
Either or.
Scott Sellers?
just to answer that, the key operative word here is half. So we do all the boards each year, but only half of them. And again, it's, if they have an even seat, then they're replaced on even years, an odd seat, they're replaced on odd years,
So
since they're 2-year terms.
that's where we do that. So that way, if there is somebody that comes on, they do have the following year, they have a chance to make an appointment. Is that what I'm understanding?
Councilmember Olson?
Well, Mayor raised his hand, but yeah, just to follow up on, yeah, every year, because their term is 2 years. So every year, there's appointments to be made on pretty much every board and commission. So yeah, it's gonna happen. Everybody's gonna have it. And I would just, and I understand the concern about elections and all that stuff, but I don't wanna wait even till December when a commission ends at the end of September. You know, so we should just follow where their term ends. Every year, people are going to have an opportunity, new council members to appoint to the boards and commissions, because every year there's turnover, or there's an opportunity for turnover. So I think that alleviates that issue, in my mind at least. But the mayor had his hand up.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of comment on the September being close to an election and the possibility of an outgoing council member appointing. You know, my thought is that, you know, we all serve 3-year terms. And so if you don't, if everything goes the way it should go, you know, a council member will have 3 opportunities. And whether it's at the very beginning of your term or towards the end, everybody will ultimately kind of have a fair shake, I think. So I don't have an objection to, you know, September, even if somebody's going to be on, you know, on the ballot, because like you say, every November, 2 of us at a minimum are going to be on the ballot. So I think you just establish the rhythm and the process, and then if that process stays consistent, then each of us, whether you're on the ballot or not, is going to get 3 basic opportunities to appoint. So that makes sense to me. And, you know, the thought on all of us doing sort of a quasi interview or basically selecting from a large pool all at once, you know, I have some resistance to that simply because I think that we'll have a lot of split votes. I think this group will, if we have, say, 10 applications, this group may very easily, for a lot of reasons that have been stated here, you know, one person may, like Mayor Pro Tem may think that, you know, where you live matters a lot. Someone else may think that, you know, your background and skills may matter more, or, you know, and you're right. You know, if we all sort of just kind of just say, oh, well, we all have our opinions, but it's council will and majority vote, and we go through that process. It has the potential to work. You know, the nominate and confirm process is designed to be a little bit, I think, less polarizing. But my experience has been that it's really not. It's going to be polarizing no matter how you do it. We haven't touched the boards and commissions policy since 2016, I think, and maybe early 2017. I don't know. I wasn't the mayor when it was last changed. And that at the time it was proposed for just staff to bring forward nominees. And I came up with the policy that we use now. But, if we want to try something different, I'm ready to go for it. So we're just going to have to be committed to, I do very much like the idea of it being a special meeting as opposed to trying to do it off the top of a regular council agenda when, maybe we have 20 or 30 items that we're getting ready to go through. If we haven't actually had a chance to do an interview, or, we're going to need to spend some time as a board thinking it through. So having it as a special meeting makes a lot of sense to me. So just my thought.
Anyone else? Councilmember Cal, sorry, couldn't spit it out.
To piggyback off of what Mayor Mitchell said, I would actually appreciate it if it was not on a day we have another agenda, so not before or after a meeting. I would like it to have its own standalone. I was not a fan of Wednesday's meeting being cut in two, but I will say I felt like it got stuff done. I'm going to ask that we don't do that all the time, but for me it worked. Even though it was something that I didn't really want to do, I felt like we came in, we got business done, and we left. And so I would like to give especially focused time to these candidates, as Mayor Mitchell said, especially if there's going to be an interview process during that meeting. So I would ask of the situation is that we don't have it on a council day. I'm not a fan of having extra meetings, but I do appreciate the time that we can dedicate to it when that's all we're focused on.
Anybody else? So I kind of in the same agreement with Councilmember Kell is that when I first heard the idea of extra meetings, I started thinking, oh wow, we're gonna have meetings every month or something like that. But doing this once a year and then having a special call meeting, if somebody has, because of a job change or a life change, has to leave a board or commission, I'd be in favor of. But I do love the interview process, and one reason why is that I've been a part of interview process as well. My application sometimes isn't fully complete because there's a point in your application where you start thinking, okay, I've done all this, stuff in the community, and if I add all this stuff, does it look like I'm in, just padding that application? You worry about how much you put on there. So sometimes they don't get the full extent of what you've put on an application because you don't want to make it seem like you're bragging or something like that, So you don't always put down everything you've done on an application. Sometimes having that interview process, they'll get you to open up. I just got elected to a commission as well. And during the interview process, they learned a lot more about me and other things I had done as well. And I think they really appreciate that. So I think the interview process is very important. I think you actually get to hear from the applicant, and you sometimes meeting people, you get a real sense of who they are over a piece of paper. And I think having that complete document, like Councilmember Ellison said, is a great start, but also having the interview process is probably the finishing touch on it for me. But I'd be in favor for this. And I just want to close with thanking Councilmember Ellison for all his research and all his hard work. I know this has always been important to you, and I think you've done your due diligence to bring this forward and bring a viable option to us as well. So thank you for all the hard work. Mayor Mitchell.
So to the question of whether, like, is this an interview process that we're actually talking about? Because I agree with what you're saying, Robert, about, there needing to be, you can get more from an interview where you sit down and ask questions and give people a chance to talk. I'm not sure that, let's say we call a special meeting and there are 10 applications. I'm not sure that, in front of the panel that you're going to get that same quality. So I'm just kind of bringing that up. Because I do think that the interview is helpful. I'm not suggesting that the interview happens by anyone other than the council, but are we sure that we're like, are we planning to bring everyone up and just have the panel or have the council ask questions and just one at a time do an actual interview? Because that wasn't quite what I got from the way Council Member Ellison was discussing it. I was thinking it's more of a, here's the list, and then council is sort of interacting with that list, trying to narrow it down and making, I'd like to nominate this person off the list for this board, and let's have a vote and see how it goes. I'm not sure that it would actually be kind of a thorough interview. So I don't know if Dex wants to speak into that or not. Maybe I'm misreading it.
Councilmember Ellison, any thoughts? Like to share?
Okay. I understand the comments about interviewing people and what you can glean from that you can't get an application. I understand that. I've interviewed dozens of people in my professional career as well. I've also interviewed people that I thought they were one person in the interview, and then I hired them and they're completely different from what they were in that interview. So that exists too. The point of this is, yes, it eradicates the individual interviews. Those aren't going to happen with this policy. And it's not just Round Rock. This is all 5 cities, I want to reiterate, that do this, not just Round Rock, not just San Marcos. And so, we could, I think the big part of this is it puts all of council in the same position, and we all have the same equitable amount of information to make our decisions. And certainly, if one person feels residency and part of the city they live in is important, one person feels experience and skills are, another person feels longevity within the city, that's their biggest priority. We all have that. And we all have our chance to nominate as many people from the overall big list as possible. And yes, there will be split votes. Sometimes one person will get majority of the council votes and the others won't. And then we'll have to keep going until we've narrowed it down and at least 4 of us agree to appoint a second person. That's how it's going to happen like that. But that's no different than if all individual 7 of us interviewed all the applications, we'd probably all come back with different nominees too. So
that's a fact.
Yeah. So that
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
So you're not doing anything by still doing that. So with this, we could, once again, I mentioned before, if the applicant wanted to come and speak and give further color during citizen comments of that special meeting, by all means. I don't think we would have or want to take the time to interview all applicants. Yeah, it might not be that big a deal if there's just a handful, but say there are 14, 20, people like that. Do we want to sit there and as a council interview every one of those individuals? No. And I would say this, you're going to have to pad that application. You're going to have to, that is what interviewing is, selling yourself. That is exactly what it is. I joke sometimes with my staff when I was a bank manager. I said, when they were nervous and I was prepping my staff for interviews, I said, you're going in to sell on a subject matter that no one knows better than you. Yourself. You're going to sell yourself. So yeah, pad it, add additional pages if you want to of all that. At the end of the day, that's your opportunity. And that's why I was pointing out that the application and how thorough that was is what I feel like is what makes or breaks how influential this will be. But yeah, no individual interviews other than the entire council getting all applications and all of those people, if they meet all the qualifications that Councilmember Parsley mentioned earlier, they are in the bucket to be chosen from and be chosen as a nominee from any of the council members. So I really think that, and Councilmember Parsley has her hand up, but I think we really should hammer down on just solidifying the time and frame we want to do this. Certainly, just bouncing back to the point you made earlier, Councilmember Rizzo, was that if there's a vacancy, say somebody resigns in February, we could try and fill that position, or we could just wait until that September or October, and that board just has to function with 6 people or 5 people or what have you for those several months, but knowing there is a definitive month in which that seat is be filled. So you can even avoid adding another special meeting just because somebody resigned in the middle of a year. So because you always know that September, October, whatever month we settle on, that those positions will be filled. It's guaranteed. And I think the mayor made a great point about everybody will get 3 opportunities to make an appointment regardless of if it's of an outgoing council member and all those different things. But I think we should really try and start coming to some substance now of this meeting and defining what month we want to do this, defining the policy, defining the roles of the resident, the city staff, and the council, and try to give staff something to type up to bring to us on Tuesday the 15th. So we can, I don't want to be here all morning.
Councilmember Parsley?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. So now my question is, once a person is qualified, and submit an application, what exactly is going to be that application like? I think maybe having a set of questions for them to respond, other than getting me, your entire life in a resume, might be helpful. Are we gonna be setting what do you think that, like you were, Council Member Elson was mentioning, do you know what the responsibilities are? What are the roles that you're gonna be playing? Do you go to meetings? What do you think about the current process on voting for any of the boards is? And then I would like to have that type of application to give everybody equally opportunity to present themselves with those sets of whatever specific questions we want to ask. And then bringing them to the meeting and allowing 3 minutes of tell me why do you want this? Because I don't know, giving a set of time for the applicants to show up to the meeting and telling me why they want to be on the board, other than having that interview process. Of course, we are going to have the application in front of us, and we are going to pick, for whatever reason, we believe it's going to be more qualified to join those boards. So that's one of the things. And then the second one was, if a member is absent for, I believe it's 3 meetings that I was reading, consecutive meetings.
It depends on the board.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
I will also guess, depending on the time when that happens, do we want to set to wait until the election is happening? Maybe allowing the chair of the board decide if they really need somebody or not. Can they wait? That's something we can also set in place. But how do we want to do that? I guess, how does the application is going to look like? Do we want to let them just bring whatever they want for the application, or do we want to ask specific questions?
So I certainly have ideas for the application. And as I mentioned, I favored the Round Rock application. There's 2 things here, though. There's the policy and the process, and then there's the application. We already have folks that have applied. Can anybody on staff that's here tell me how many applications we currently have, regardless of the board or commission, that has applied since, September of last year? I know there was a request for us to get all of that information, so we should probably have that readily available. But either way, so I think there's one thing. There's the policy and the process. I think we need to hammer that down. I think that's what we need to do today. Getting the application to where we want it to be, I think is another separate task. And certainly, if y'all want to go through it this morning, I'd be happy to do that too. But I really think we should get the policy and procedure hammered out. I think if we have at least the same number of applications as we have vacancies on our boards and commissions, we go ahead and go through with a special called meeting here this month or early next month to go ahead and go through that process with the applications we have in place. And then at a later date, we go through and truly hammer out an application that looks the way we want it to do in order to glean all that information that we're hoping to get that would, in large part, supplant, the interview process beyond, obviously, them coming here and speaking during citizen comments. That's my recommendation, because once again, it's Sunday morning. I feel bad staff is all here. I think we should try to come up with something and leave here with something. And I think coming up with a new policy and procedures and hammering that out would at least be a productive morning to get that at least done. But I'm certainly, like I said, I think the application that I saw in Round Rock, y'all might feel differently. You might go through and look at all these cities or choose other cities to look at and find some other recommendations for an application. But I think as far as the policy, it's the same across the board of all these cities. So that's what I'm hoping we can at least get hammered down today and get that figured out.
Councilmember Tobias?
Okay, let's bring this forward. I make the recommendation that if we go with this policy, that we start that we call the special meeting the first Wednesday of September, right after the regular council, to where we would have a special meeting for appointing the boards and commissions.
That'll be the date for the
That'll be the
policies.
date, right after we have our budget. We have our budget, it's done. We have our first council meeting in September. That following Wednesday would be the recommendations for the boards and commissions for that year. That way, people who want to apply can know that's going to be the date to where we're going to actually have that meeting for all the boards according to the year in place.
My
Scott
only-
Sellers? Sorry, Scott Sellers? You said you had something?
I'm looking up the budget calendar, but typically we have several special meetings that are literally one vote, just to approve the final budget. So maybe instead of making it a specific day, we look at it as part of that budget calendar process.
Yeah, or the month. So what I saw in all of the cities, they didn't narrow it down to a day, and I understand, and I like what you're thinking because it tells everybody, but at least a month time frame. So say it's just any time in September, a special meeting needs to be called to do this. That way, everybody knows it's in September or whatever month we agree upon. And to Scott's point, sometimes there's nuances with the budget workshop. Maybe there's something else that comes up that prevents or another meeting. You never know what was going on. So that way, if you just make it September, we know that it has to happen in September. The council at that time, at any given time, whoever those 7 and city manager, they can figure out a date in September that best works to do that based on whatever parameters are at play in
That's
that
right.
given year.
I understand what you're saying. Let's not narrow it down to a day, is what you're saying, right? Let's narrow it down to September will be the actual month where we do all the commissions, boards, recommendations for the year, for the 2-year terms. And every council member will have an opportunity, kind of like what Mayor Mitchell was saying. But make it in September, that would be the month where we have the meeting according to what, if we go with the recommendation that Councilman Elson's bringing forward, do we have that special meeting to where we all nominate those people? It'd be in September. So we can narrow it down. Can we agree to that?
Yes.
Councilmember Kell?
Thank you. Okay, so I think something else we need to think about in making sure that we receive the information timely is going to be an application deadline, and then a time where council will receive those applications no later than. So I would like to do the deadline to be, if we're going to have the process sometime in September, I would say the deadline be like August 15th. So that gives us 15 days to review the applications. And that's just a time yes.
Councilmember Tobias?
I would go with July 31st. The reason why is because August is budget. We got probably a workshop that Saturday. We also probably have meetings the 31st. And we have plenty of time to review it, and then that way we have everything done by September. That's just 2 weeks.
I am all for,
I mean,
the longer I
I'm
have to
just-
look at it, the better.
You
So
just
July's
have,
good for
the
me.
application process is, it cuts off on the 31st for the year.
Okay.
And then September is when we have it. It gives us that 1 month. Because again, we've got other council meetings going on. We also have the budget going on. may have a TERS meeting in between. I don't know, I mean, I'm just looking at the schedule, because I know for the past 2 years being on council, August is very, very busy.
I guess the only
mean,
concern I have
it's-
is that we've got the applicants in limbo for 30 days. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I just worry about leaving them in limbo. I know I heard some comments earlier about waiting too long, leaving people in limbo. Is 30 days too long? I don't know. I'll let council decide.
Yeah,
Councilman Ellison.
hopefully I can alleviate this. So that's where the communication is important. You have people that whatever the application time frame is, okay, I was fine with August, but it's indifferent as long as the applicants are being communicated to. So if we make the process where you can apply for boards and commissions from, say, all of June and July, and we cut it at the end of July, say that's just the case. Staff then has time to go through all those applications and communicate to them you have met all the qualifications or you have not met all the qualifications. There's no extended period of time that they're sitting there waiting about it. If they didn't meet the qualifications, then they know they're not going to be a part of the September special council meeting. If they get a response and they say that you met all the qualifications, the next step will be a special called meeting in September where council will consider all applications. That's all they need to know. And I'm sure if Mr. Grout was here, he would appreciate that too. It's just the communication of the expectation of what is happening. You know,
That's
so
fine.
it's
Yes.
not even them waiting. They'll be waiting, but they know I met all the qualifications and I'm going to be in that pool whenever that special call meeting is in September in order to be potentially nominated. So that for me is not an issue. It's just really the crux of it is the communication and making sure people are immediately made aware if they meet the only qualifications that there are. I know you're laughing, but man, this has been a year of dealing with this. But that is the essential part that needs to happen. If that happens, then nobody's in limbo, not knowing where they are.
I guess we're just trying to get a date. That's it. We're trying to get that procedure. And that's
Councilmember
why
Kell?
the recommendation was the 31st.
Councilmember Kell?
Okay, so my recommendation is going to be, as soon as they go online and fill out the application, then an auto response is given, because again, communication is essential. An auto response, your application has been received. So at least they know that the city's received their application. And then within maybe 7 days, an email will be sent to the residents, and it'll have like the dates and the process. It could be like if they qualify, which again, there's only 2. So if they don't, maybe we could have a form that says why they're not qualified. And so it'd be easier for the city just to like send that out. And then another form email that has the dates and how the process works. And I don't want to micromanage, but I would like to see that email so we know that the resident is completely informed and aware of the process. My fear would be that they would not show up to a meeting inadvertently because there would be an issue. The dates would be wrong or so, I don't know. But I would just like to make sure that I can lay eyes on that as well. But as soon as we have those 2, really it's just a matter of getting the applications and reviewing them and then having them come to the meeting. So if I can just recap on the things that we've talked about, we've semi-agreed or agreed that September would work. And then that communication is important. So unless there's like a big no to an auto response, I would like to see an auto response saying that the application has been received. And then some kind of follow-up email, just letting them know how the process works and what the dates will be.
Yeah, I'm amenable to all that. I mean, at the end of the day, communication is important. I think that, one, yes, let them know that it's been received. Secondly, maybe an outline of what the next steps are, potentially, that, within, say, 2 weeks, they'll get a response letting them know if they have met all qualifications and that they will be going on forward to be expected to be at the September special meeting, and we will be informing them at a later date when that special meeting has been set. So then it's just, all those people are put into a queue, and they're just waiting for that email once the city council makes that special meeting date. So I'm fine with all that. I agree with Councilmember Flores-Cale that communication is key and just letting them know where they are in the process. And therefore, I don't think people will have the issue that Mr. Grout was explaining earlier about that. So I'm agreeable to all that.
Could I also please request that there be a specific staff name on the email? I think we've run into some situations prior to where emails have gone out and they've not really been appropriate. And so for me, I need some kind of accountability. So if at the end of the day, whoever is in charge of sending out that email has a name on it, that would be appreciated by me. I don't know if anybody else cares.
What if it's just a generic, everybody gets the same letter? You really, there's nothing really nuanced that you'll be communicating that's really individualized. It's either, did you qualify? Yes. Then this is the email you get, and this is outlining all the steps. Did you not qualify? No, and this is the reason why you didn't qualify. And there should just be X's marked, because there's only certain areas that you can't qualify.
So we did
And
have one that was not qualified, and there was no name on that email, and there was no way to figure out who sent it.
Right.
So
but
that's
if-
my concern. So
gotcha.
maybe if there's
But
a
if there's a
denial.
uniform letter, it doesn't matter who the person is coming from, right? It's just, we all know what that uniform letter for you meet the qualifications are. We all know what the uniform letter for not meeting the qualifications are. So if that's
Okay.
uniform, then it doesn't matter who sends the email. Nobody can change it. All you do is check the box for why they didn't qualify, if it's the non-qualified email, or you have the already pre-prepared email that says what the next steps are, and you'll be expecting to hear from us once the special council meeting is set, because you did meet all the qualifications. So that, for me, I see that if it's all uniform and just two letters, there's no ability for any staff member or otherwise to.
Okay, I guess my concern is like if they say they don't qualify, but really they do, then who do they contact?
There would be a box that is checked that says you don't qualify because you haven't lived here the 12 months or whatever the requirement is. You don't qualify because you owe the city X amount in fines. You don't qualify because you're not a registered voter. You don't qualify because whatever the fourth reason is. Those are the only reasons
Okay.
somebody would not qualify.
I mean, that's
There's
not,
no
none
other
of those,
reason.
None of those were the reasons that this person got declined.
Right, and that's why
So-
that old policy is flawed and we got rid of it. Now
Okay.
we're talking about a new
Okay.
policy. So the only qualifications, once again, that's why I said be careful with our words. Experience and skills are one thing, qualifications are another.
Well, I don't
They're
think that it was
only
either
set-
one of those. It was just because the policy had changed. And so when that email had went out and said, hey, this policy, we've now made it, 3 years and you can renew, but there was no accountability for how that email went out.
Right, well,
so
once
it's-
again, that gets solved with a uniform, one or the other form that we all know what that form looks like.
Okay.
Any other council members? Councilmember Tobias?
Maybe if I'm hitting this on this end about, I know it's a uniform email, but when we're looking in customer service, it would be helpful to maybe have a department or a name or something for any other follow-up questions. Please contact so-and-so at the city for any other qualification. It's a follow-up email. We're talking about communication, so if we just send out a blank, hey, you didn't qualify for this, and the other, I would have liked to seen that says, if you have any further questions, please contact Michael Tobias at this number, and we can discuss it. It could have been just like, oh, that's what I need going forward, so I know. Because if we're gonna have that communication, like we're talking about, people want to be able to still have somebody personally they can contact at the city. Is that what we're getting at?
Yes.
So that way they can go back and say, it's from this department, it's from Parks and Rec, it's a name, it's Ms. Smith, it's Mr. Johnson, Mr. Miller, versus just a random, hey, you didn't qualify, sorry, maybe next
So
time.
it should be, the only thing I'll say about that, it should be from one single department that Scott identifies, because they're applying for all the boards and commissions. So it shouldn't even come from an individualized department. It should come from one area in city administration that just is reviewing those sets of qualifications. And really, and certainly, yeah, have somebody that you can call, a phone number or, a general phone number, but really it's yes or no. There's no gray area really on those qualifications. Either you meet them or you don't. Have you lived here 12 months or you don't? Do you owe the city fines or you don't? Are you registered to vote or not? It's that simple. But yeah, certainly, if somebody wants to follow up and have a phone call, yes, but it shouldn't be any individual department, because the new policy, if we're going in the way that I think we're going, you're applying for all of them. You're essentially applying for all vacancies that are available at that time. So it won't be one individual department, planning replying to the planning and zoning applicants, parks replying to the parks applicants. It won't be that anymore. It's one unified area because we're all doing this together.
Mayor Mitchell?
I was curious if there were rules in some of these other boards and commissions policies that we've been looking at related to communication between the applicants and the council. Because I can imagine, and I know this board, our council in particular, likes to, be real interactive with the applicants. Is it a situation where maybe we have 15, 20 total applicants where individual council members are kind of communicating and conducting individual sort of interviews with applicants and what we think about that? Because I can just imagine that on that day in September, the majority of the board is going to have already had conversations with different members for different reasons.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mayor, because I was thinking the same thing. Actually, that's what I was going to allude to is I know in the past we've always reached out to applicants, and I was wondering, does this dynamic change that? Because I know sometimes we can look at an application and have a question on it. What do we do to get that question answered? What is the process?
Would it be the same as ethics? Like, we've always had access to their information, and I think if a council member would like to reach out prior to, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand what the issue is that we're trying to avoid there. Yeah, I mean, certainly, that happens in everything we do, whether that's a meeting with a developer or a property owner or, any other due diligence that a council member feels they need to do with respect to the Open Meetings Act. Are you discussing that with more than two other individuals? Are you, doing all that type of stuff? There's parameters for that. Once again, you're not going to eradicate everything where somebody could try to get somebody on a board or commission or whatever their a nefarious motive could be. But I don't see the need to try and weed out that, because people are going to do their due diligence to figure out what they want to do. So if a council member wants to go through and talk to all 15, or maybe they'd select to only talk to 2 or 3 of them, that's their prerogative. But at the end of the day, the council will be the guard on those majority votes. And so if somebody went down and they said, I interviewed these people and I only want folks that have this ideology and only live in this side in this one individual neighborhood, and that's the only people I'm going to nominate, well, great. That's your choice. But the other 6 are going to do what they feel is best. And the majority vote will happen on however many vacancies need to be filled.
I know for me, it wasn't about, trying to eliminate it. I think it was trying to get the consensus from the council, seeing how they felt about council members reaching out. But it seems like everybody's okay with it, so I'm good. I just wanted to make sure that it was out there in the open, that if, I decide, because I know sometimes looking at applications, I'll have questions on it. I'm going to want to reach out. So I just wanted to make sure that all the council members would be aware of that process, that we would reach out to those applicants.
Yeah, it might actually even be helpful, So if you've got, a bunch of people checking a bunch of different boxes and applying, there could be I'm thinking about a situation where maybe there's a vacancy on the library board and we have 15 applicants, but nobody checked that box and we need to fill that seat. How do we handle that? I think having council be able to, reach out to applicants and see if they might be interested in a different board, I think would be helpful. But Dex said something there about, the nomination process. So there's the applicant pool, and I'm trying to understand how do you go from the applicant pool to the nominees that receive votes? So each council member can just nominate, and then there's a majority vote on the nominee to become to move from the application to the nominee, or how does I'm still trying to understand that part of it.
Okay, I'll try.
Like, is it? I know. I'm sorry. I'm really trying. But is it 2 votes that we're talking about, where we would take a vote to move them into the nominee pool, and then another vote where we're voting to actually appoint?
So I'll try it again. So we'll just try to use round numbers here. So there's 20 people that have applied, and all 20 of those people are at the meeting. They know the special call meeting. We go one time through. It's not necessarily a vote. It's just a one time through to nominate as many of those 20 people as you want. Say we're talking about the library board, and they have 2 spots open. You can nominate however many people you want from that group of 20 for those vacancies. We go through, and everybody gets a chance to nominate as many as they want. Then we come back around, and then that narrowed pool of the nominees, however many those are, say out of the 20, it got truncated down to 8 people that amongst the council, maybe a few of us picked the same people, maybe one person got picked by only one council member. They still get into that nomination pool. So then from that nomination pool, down from the larger pool, you have however many people, and then that's when the vote happens. So then you go through one by one, council members vote for however many vacancies there are. So once again, in my example, there's 2. So out of those 8 people that we narrowed it down to the nominee group, you state 2 people from that list, and then we all state 2 people. And then say one person gets 5, the other people get 4, 3, 2, however many votes. That person that got a majority, they're automatically on. And say we might have to go through another round and vote, narrow it down till we get another person that is majority. It's a really quick process. It just goes right through. Once everybody gets what is going on, it just, you file right through it. So I'm not sure if I could explain it any different than that, but that's how it goes down from the large applicant pool that everybody who met the qualifications and is at this special meeting. Then you get narrowed down to, we take up each individual board one at a time, and we focus on one board at a time and say, okay, library board, we have 2 vacancies. Councilmember Flores Kale, who are your nominees? Da 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 da. Great. Next person, who are your nominees? Da 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 da. Great. We've got all 7 people. Now let's go through and make recommendations of however many people that there are vacancies from each individual member. Does that make sense? I'm not sure, other than drawing maybe a diagram. I could explain this any different.
Well, I think it'd be good for maybe all of us, for me for sure, to potentially just watch one of the meetings where this process is followed, because obviously, Councilor Ellison's done that, and so it's easier to to get your mind around it. I'm thinking in your scenario where there's 20 applicants for 2 seats on the library board. If there's only 2 seats, and if we're going down the list, can one person say, I nominate all 20? Like, is that even possible? Or are you limited to only being able to nominate the number of seats filled that are vacant? So in our scenario, we would go down, and each person could pick 2 people off the list because there's only 2 vacancies, and then that would potentially narrow it down to that number, like 8, like you're talking about.
Yeah, so I see your point. So one thing I just want to reiterate, people, when they apply in every coming September going forward, they should need to know that they could be picked for any of the boards or commissions. If they are not willing to serve on one of the boards or commissions or not, we need to know about that. That could be a disqualifier for someone. I don't know. But that is the expectation, that everybody knows that going into this, they could be drafted onto any of the boards or commissions. Certainly, I see your point. One member could say, okay, all 20 I'm nominating. Okay, what are the problems there? Okay, then we know that all 20 are up for grabs to be recommended. So really, you haven't saved yourself a step by that. So I think, other than annoying your fellow council members, all you've done, that's pretty much all you've done. Because then the idea is to go from an overall larger pool to a smaller, narrow pool based on your review of the applications to say, okay, this particular board, I think actually these X amount of people would fit best with this board as opposed to any of the other boards. So that is the goal, is to try and narrow it down throughout the process. If somebody wanted to be a wise person and nominate all 20 or however many, then you just you took away the point from doing that, and now you probably just annoyed your fellow council members. But either way, even if they did that, say all 20, then we still go through and can only recommend however many vacancies there are. So all you've done is, instead of narrowing it down to 8 or whatever, my example, you still left the number at 20, but we're still only voting for however many vacancies there are. So like I said, all you've done is maybe annoyed your colleagues and not allowed a smaller pool to pick from. But certainly you could do that. If we want to make a rule that you can't do that, fine, but I don't really see the point in making that rule, since, it should be the understood goal as you're trying to narrow it down. But at the end of the day, if somebody wanted to nominate all people that were qualified, that's their prerogative. Still means that the vote through that we go is only the number that there are vacancies.
Okay, I just want to weigh in real quick. So I guess the only issue I have with this process is that I don't like where you have to consider all the options that are out there for boards and commissions, because there's people with passions in fields. There's people that are passionate about books. They want to be on the library board. There's people that are passionate about parks and our trail systems. They want to be on the trails. They want to work on the parks board. They don't have any interest in the other things. And if this is going to limitate them, I think you're taking people away from your pool that are really passionate about different boards and commissions. I know that I can think of one individual right now that's doing a great job on our parks board and would have no interest in anything else, not P&Z or anything else, and that person's making a difference on that parks board. So I think I like the policy, except for the part that you can't specifically ask for boards and commissions, because I think we would lose some very passionate people.
You can, though. The part of the application is you list your top priorities. You list, we can, whatever, the 3 has been the one that all these cities use. They say 3. We could narrow it down to 2 or whatever number we want to make that. So we still see what their preference is. We still see that. They still have their opportunity to say, parks is my main interest. So that still all happens. I'm really trying to get to a point where we start putting some policy together here. I understand you all's concerns, and trust me, I think that I agree. Maybe going and looking at the San Marcos meeting that they had just last Tuesday would help get y'all's minds around it. That was the point of me sending that to you all, so you could see it ahead of this meeting. But at the end of the day, that we're still going to know what their preference is, because it's going to state that. And we're going to know. Okay. So it doesn't take that away.
I just worried about a statement you said earlier, that you said that if they weren't willing to serve on all the boards and commissions, it might be a disqualifier.
It might be a disqualifier to an individual council member. Yeah. So just like living in Plum Creek might be a qualifier or disqualifier for somebody. Everybody's going to have their little individual nuances of what they feel is, a qualifier or disqualifier. Regardless, it's the whole body making the decision, and the majority of it, and we will still know what their preference is. At the end of the day, if their preference was parks and they didn't get picked for parks by majority vote and they got put on another board, they could accept or reject that. But at the end of the day, it's still all the council being a part of naming that board and commission.
Anybody else? Councilmember Kell?
Okay, just kind of piggybacking off I think the issue that's at hand. We don't have to do what Round Rock does. I mean, if we're amenable to saying, okay, we're just going to have 2, the top 2, and we say, just make sure, you pick your top favorite 2 and say you only pick 1, but you're going to limit yourself on getting on that board. If we don't think you qualify for whatever reason, then you just eliminate yourself. So you don't have to put 2 down. You don't have to put 3 down. You could just put 1, and then we know you're only interested in that 1, but it kind of gives that free will to the residents, and it also allows them the opportunity to maybe get on boards that they just having 1 interview would have done. So I still think it's a great process. I still think it's a great idea. I think it is important to have on the application what their interests are, and if they only put that they want to be on Parks and Rec, then that's what we consider them for. They don't have to fill in 3, they can just fill in 1, but that limits themselves.
Yeah,
Other than that, I think it's I think it's great. I think it's a great process. If we are interested, I just tried to look at San Marcos's city council, and they don't have the video on it. But I think there's other, I think he said there was Frisco, Round Rock. There's other ones that we can look to. I don't think it's as complicated as we're making it. I think as long as we can agree that this is the process we want is to collectively look at these applications and collectively agree on it. The way the process works is something that we should move forward on, not just taking into consideration other cities. We can just build our own process, and I think that's what Councilmember Ellison is trying to do, is just say, okay, if this is what we want, let's move forward, and how do we want this to look? And I'm totally agreeing with that, and I'm glad it was brought up, how, the idea of how many boards and commissions you are applying for at one time, because I thought the top 3 was like our top 3. This is the top 3 we want for this this board or commission. And we can even include that. We can say, okay, each of us say, we have 20 applications. These are my top 3. And then we just roll call and figure out if those match up in any other way. Because you could say 10, but Councilmember Ellison is correct. You're just making life a little bit harder because there's not 10 openings. So if there are 2 openings, we each give our top 2 picks for the application. And then if those people have it on there that this is what they want to be on, say our top 2, maybe it didn't apply, or I don't know. Hopefully you just pick what they apply for. Otherwise it'd be a waste of time. But again, I don't think it's as complicated as we are sitting here trying to make it. I think it works for several other cities, so there's no way that Kyle cannot do the same thing, if not take it and make it better. So if this is the policy we want, if this is the way we want to go, that collectively as a dais, we're going to look at these applications and we are going to pick from those, I say we secure that idea and then we move forward on how we want that process to look. And I am all for it. I'm
Just
okay with it.
FYI, Council, so San Marcos, just like ours, their meetings are all archived on their website, so I just sent the link to Scott to send to you all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other discussion? All right.
I agree with Devon. So I think that's.
So do we
I
need?
think we can do this.
Do we need to, it looks like it's the concessions of the dais to move forward with this policy. I don't think we need to take a vote. I think we just need to give direction. Is that correct, Scott?
Correct.
So,
Yeah, as a workshop, we can't actually
yeah,
take votes.
yeah, I'm just making sure. All right. So I guess just to give Scott and staff direction to bring back a policy for council to review with the statements you heard here tonight. I mean, today, sorry. Sunday morning, sorry about that. But anything else? Councilor Ellison?
So, and I appreciate Councilmember Flores Kale's word, and I agree as well. So I just want to make sure, because there are certainly folks I'm sure watching or probably will watch and see where we're going with this, is we have next steps in place. And so that's why I was kind of recommending that, to get this ball rolling. Obviously, we're looking to get a new policy brought for us at the 15th meeting. Hopefully, you have a decent amount of direction to build a policy from what we've talked about. Once again, I think we've talked about the communication. We've talked about the month in which this was happening, the expectations of the volunteer. Definitely attending the meeting where the appointment is considered, so that's the September meeting. That language being a part of the policy. Staff reviewing the applications. Did we come up with a definitive timeline on which we want? Because I know we said September is when the meeting's happening, but is there a definitive timeline on which we're accepting applications? Is it just all year, or are there certain frames in the month, or certain months of the year? I saw with the other cities, they did have, say, like May through August or whatever their time frame was. That's the time frame they accept all applications, so everybody knows that's a uniform time frame. We can go whichever route we want on that. I think the response time to let I completely agree. The automatic email, letting them know it's received. 2 weeks probably is a good amount of time for staff to review that application, hopefully to see if they meet all the only qualifications, and then get an email back, you know, yay or nay, and then the next steps. So hopefully that will be added to our direction. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So sometimes those qualifications are hard for staff to ascertain. Residency requirement's a great one, you know, so in the form, what we typically do is just ask if they meet all the minimum qualifications. If they certify that they do, we put that forward. It's hard to, you know, parse whether or not they've been in a certain address for 6 months, for example, you know, or, you know, they'll verify their birth date. So I think on the form, as long as we have them certify, you know, under penalty of law, whatever, that they meet the minimum qualifications, we're gonna call it. that they-
Yeah, and I certainly agree with that. Probably would the only one be the
Can't
registered.
do arrears, maybe to the city, you know,
Yeah.
or a registered voter.
So if
Those
that's
two-
2 out of 3, I would like to see all 3 of them. I would like them to say, yes, I've lived in Kyle for 6 months. Because
So-
the address doesn't really matter, right? It
This-
just matters if they've lived within the
Would
city.
they have to be?
It has to be
within
6 to
city
12
limits?
months.
Yeah, because I'm going to be honest,
I'll say
the
12.
residents may not they may not read it. They may not understand what that means. They might just say, yes, of course, I live here. So maybe if we, because there's 2 of them, right? There's 2 qualifications.
I think there's 4.
They
Right?
gotta- They gotta meet all
There's
the
4.
qualifications.
Yes, so let's put those qualifications on there, and it shouldn't say disqualify or whatever, but it should just ask the question, right? How long have you lived in Kyle? Do you owe any taxes? Are you indebted to the city? Whatever those questions are, because my fear is maybe if you say, do you qualify, they're not gonna go and look. So I think it's important for them to check, yes, I've lived here, no, I don't owe any money.
I think
Or-
what Scott's
those are
saying is
individual,
that
yeah.
there's the statement, the perjury statement that's at the top of that thing and says, under penalty of perjury or whatever that language will be, you know, you've got to answer those questions honestly and accurately. In lieu of staff actually going through and doing the nuance of, okay, has this person lived here at this address for at least 6 to 12 months or whatever, depending on the board? Is this person a registered voter? Is this person owing any fines? Probably want to just follow up on that one, I would think. So that's what I'm gathering is what Scott's saying. And so for me, I think if there's that clear accountability on that application that says, you know, you got to be honest here. And if we're ever found out to be honest, you know, there's a penalty here. I think that's fine with me. I'm not sure if it's good with the rest of the council. But I understand that could be quite a time commitment.
I would like to see the statement and having a checkbox, like, are you at least 18 years of age? Are you a citizen of the United States or registered voter? Have you been a resident of the state of Texas and the city for at least 12 consecutive months? And then, are you delinquent in any indebtedness to the city? Also, it says in here, are you an employee of the city?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
can-
5.
So that would be fine. To me, I would like to see them in there. So if you check the box saying yes, you should be qualified.
Correct.
Yeah, those will be.
Simple
in
like
there.
that.
So
Can we-
those are gonna be in there. It's just a statement that they're talking about. That's
Yeah.
on top, you know, under perjury, you know, you're
Okay.
answering these questions. That's what they're talking about right now.
Yep.
So what I got from council earlier was, application process was from the beginning of June to the end of July is what we talked about. Is that what council's amenable to? Are they, is that what y'all are looking at for applications? From June and July? Yeah.
Can we
Yeah,
make
start
it a
of
little
June
bit
to-
further? Can we make it like May
Well,
to,
I guess my concern is that when you leave applications in limbo too long, people move on with their lives.
but they will know.
So
They
this will
will
be 2
know
months.
that this is not a surprise. They will know that this is going to happen in September. So you can open it up in May. They don't have to fill it out in May. They could do it whenever they want. But at least we're giving them the option to not have to rush for, you know, a month or a month and a
60
half.
days is not a rush. I'm telling you right now.
I don't know about that.
60 days is not a rush.
Some of us are busy. And
I'm
I don't think
indifferent.
it's going to not do any harm to open it up a little bit further. Now, if they say, oh, yeah, I applied back in May, well, that's on them. That's not
I
on the
guess my
city.
concern is that now we're gonna be reviewing applications that people have decided, you know what, I'm gonna go do something else because it's been open too long. I mean, that's 3 months now. You're looking at 90 days.
I guess I guess I'm not understanding your concern because we're identifying that September
know.
is the month. They
They know.
know, regardless
know.
if they're applying May 1st, they know
I get-
that the interview
I
or
know
the
they know,
appointment.
but I'm saying, what if they change with it? Now you're giving them 90 days, it's 3
Then
months.
they change, and then by the time September comes around, they don't show up, and they're out of the
And,
pool.
and it's somebody that we picked, and it's like, wait a minute, my applicant's not even here no more.
You wouldn't pick them because if they applied on May 1st
Okay.
and they didn't show up at the September meeting, then they're not an option.
Okay.
So
Sounds
no
good.
one's.
That's what my concern was, that I find somebody that's all of a sudden moved on to something else. So, yeah, definitely.
I think what you're concerned about is you think that if I apply for something that's going to happen in September, we're narrowing it down. In September is when we're going to make the appointments. We're going to be taking applications. If some of you want to decide middle of May through July 31st, that's almost 2.5 months. Okay. Yeah. I would just go with June 1st through on that end. It's just 2 months.
That's,
Okay,
Okay,
and
let's
you
just
know
do
it.
June. Yeah,
And
'cause
the
it's not a
ex-
battle
and
that
the
I wanna
ex- and
fight.
the expectation is, again, this is the time frame. If you decide to pull out and say, I don't want to do it, I've got other stuff going on, or I decide to go volunteer somewhere else, that's on them.
yeah, because really they could do it June 1st and still pull out and say, I changed my mind by September. They could do it July 31st and then change their mind. I don't think, this is not a battle I want to fight. So if everybody is okay with June 1st, I'm okay with that. I would like to say, though, can we direct staff to put all the information that is on the Round Rock application, which I've sent to Amber and Scott? Can they pull that information and stick it on there? And then if we don't agree with it, we could take it out. I've reviewed this application over and over again, and there is nothing that I don't like. I love it. I love it. I think it's great. It has an ethics agreement. It has a link to the ethics. It's great. And so if this could be a starting, I mean, we could only make this better, in my opinion. But if we could start with this and then kind of move forward, I would be completely pleased by it.
That's the selection process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could pick, although, like, yeah, under the selection, it has like the committees and boards. If we could put like boxes that say 1, 2, or 3, or where, you know, what their first 2 choices are, that would be helpful as well. Because these, I think you just highlight everything that you're interested in. But I would also like to know what their first interest is and what their second interest is. So again, we can make it better.
Agreed.
All right, Scott, is that enough info? Direction?
Yeah, there
We open
are
up
little
June through July.
nuances throughout the ordinances that we'll try to account for. Like the library board has an additional
Right.
requirement of being in Hayes County.
Yeah.
The train depot, the library board, P&Z, there's different nuances that are just gonna have to be referenced by the section in their thing, and we're gonna have to just reference that, because I don't know if we wanna take all that charter language and dump it into the policy. So just referencing the section in the charter, if there are certain specifications, and, you know, like I said, P&Z had, you can't miss more than 4 in a term. Other board had, you can't miss 3 consecutive. So there's different nuances, and we just can't get around that because it's the charter. But, so yeah, I would just say we reference that in the policy. And then, so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to battle on the time frame to accept applications, because for me, I'd want to accept them all throughout August too. But either way, I think as long as the expectation of what is set, of what is to come, nobody's left in the loop. And then the applicant can decide anytime between the time they apply and that September special meeting if they want to continue with a commitment that they, whenever they apply. That's their prerogative.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, I've got one just related to
Mayor Mitchell?
P and Z. Yeah, so P and Z's got 2 vacancies right now. So I don't think that it's right to leave those seats open all year. So we need to come up with something for how we're going to fill those 2 seats. And I'm not sure if we have any other
Library
vacancies
board as
out
well.
there right now. Right.
So what I gathered
So
from the,
we need-
go ahead, Mayor Mitchell, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say we need to do something on those now, and it could be as simple as, let's follow this process and take the applications that we have and bring them forward and have a meeting and everybody, you know, tries to narrow it down then. But don't think we should wait till September.
Agreed.
I agreed.
Agreed.
And that was at
Yep,
the,
we all agree.
if y'all remember at the top of my,
We-
my
we-
long speech,
I
I
was
said
actually
that we
gonna say
should
that,
have a
yeah.
special meeting by either the end of this month or the beginning of March and do this process with those that have already applied within the past year. And all we got to do is
Yeah,
staff just needs to reach back out to all of those applicants and say, hey, here's the new policy or here's the general new steps. Are you still interested? Give us your top three. Give them in the order you want them, because I think that's the only additional information we probably need to know right now. And then as September or whatever, it starts to new one. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mayor. We need to rock and roll and do a special meeting either this month or next month to get this finally settled.
Definitely.
We'll have the policy back to you by the 15th.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then right after that,
Yeah,
we'll
it's
set
just,
up the meeting for the, then right after we get the policy in and we voted in,
Set the meeting.
and even if we don't vote it in, would y'all be amenable to, following this policy to do the, nominations for, setting a meeting for the nominations for P and Z? But I think the policy's gonna
We'll
get,
set an item on the
Yeah.
15th to set that special meeting.
all right, sounds good. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. No
we
more
need to,
discussion?
we need to make sure that we, pass the policy first, I think, before we
Okay.
move forward on the nominations.
All right, sounds good. All right. Any other discussion?
I think it's just saying though, that yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but it'd be efficient if we could at least have an agenda item, I think Scott was saying, after that, in case we want to go ahead and set that meeting. But then again, I guess that could still just be given as direction, could it not? I mean,
It could.
yeah.
Sure, as part of the
Okay.
same item.
But no, I agree. We need to pass the policy first, but I think there's an expectation we're saying publicly that if we go forward with this, we're looking to call a special meeting here within the next month or March to fill these open seats we have now, and we're not waiting to September. I
Correct.
think that's the clear, unified voice we have here.
Well, 4 months in.
All right.
Agreed.
Agreed. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay.
We got a second by Councilmember Kell. We are now adjourned.